Oh, hey
Hey
there,
there,
everyone.
everyone.
Sorry I
Sorry I
didn't
didn't
see
see
you.
you.
I was
I was
just
just
looking
looking
at
at
some of
some of
my
my
favorite
favorite
constellations
constellations
like
like
Aries,
Aries,
Scorpion,
Scorpion,
Aquarium,
Aquarium,
and
and
Capsicum.
Capsicum.
So
So
I
I
hope
hope
everyone
everyone
is
is
having a
having a
wonderful
wonderful
day at
day at
home
home
while
while
I'm
I'm
here
here
looking at
looking
the
at the
stars.
stars.
And in
And in
case
case
you're
you're
feeling
feeling
a little bit jealous, well, don't worry. We've got plenty of rising stars for you to see tonight. And one of the first I'd like to introduce is my my co-analyst today on the desk, Casual. Mate, how you going?
Hey, quick, good. I mean, look, every day I wake up and I think, how is Quicksand going to top his famous introductions? And you've done it once again, so well done. No, a lot of work for what is very much a mediocre pun, but I appreciate you and lots of love. And I'm very happy to be beside you. But you're right, I'm wearing a different hat tonight. I am an analyst, not a caster, and I'm really excited to get into talking about these teams because you mentioned Rising Stars. And oh boy, there's plenty, not only just in the matchup that we're going to see UQ Eagles versus Massive Esports, but also just their entire group. So we'll get to see a lot more of these players come up against what really are already top tier players, and definitely, like you mentioned, those up and comers as well. So really excited to kick off what's going to be a fantastic tournament tonight.
Yeah, I think you've put us in a really good starting point of what I'd like to talk about tonight. First up is the group we're looking at tonight. So
Yeah.
we're starting with Group C, which already is filled with amazing teams like you get to watch tonight with UQ and Massive. But there's one team I'd say that feels like, at least with prestige, it shadows
Yeah.
over the others. One team, specifically Mcom 35, has three LCO players and two are currently active. One of them being an LCO All-Star, Dante, who's in ADC. So
Yeah.
not only is he in the LCO, he was voted the best ADC in the LCO, which is a bit of a tough task to match up for the other players in the group.
Yeah, I mean, coming into this tournament, I think everyone knew, despite what their backgrounds are in competitive and what tournament experience they've got, that they're coming up against some really heavy opponents. And in particular, taking the cake in that regard is the MCOM 3-5 army that you mentioned. I mean, they've got Foreigner in the jungle, Appy in the top lane, and then Dante, like you mentioned. The other LCO player, pardon me, alongside Dante, of course, being Violet, off-rolled, playing support, which is not a role that many people would have seen him in, but they will be the team that tonight's matchup almost means the most for, in a way. And what I mean by that is UQ Eagles and Massive Esports, in the context of this group, are really fighting for that second, third place to be able to contend with 3-5 Army, who I think everyone can agree are those comfortable favorites. So in the context of how good Group C is as a whole, it makes this matchup that may seem pretty mid on the surface that much more important, because there's only 5 weeks of these games and there's only two teams at the top of each of their brackets that will continue. So every win matters, Quicksand, and hopefully for either Eagles or Massive, they'll be coming off a really happy night, because it's not going to be easy. These teams, as we mentioned in the backstage, Quicksand, are very even. They match each other in almost every respect, and there's a few familiar faces as well within these teams. We talked about some potential rivalry going on, and what I mean by that is ex-teammates, which is almost the most entertaining storyline, if you'll entertain me, because I love the idea of people knowing the insides and outsides of how a particular player goes about their game onto the Rift, and then having to have the reverse experience of now actually attacking what they know about them. What I mean by this is you've got Lysaea and MWB for Massive, who are coming up against their potential old friend, but definitely ex-teammate in Kane. So having a look at the matchup for Massive right now, they've, of course, like I mentioned, got MWB up in the top lane, which is a new role for him. He's actually off-rolled himself into the top lane, and now I think it's fair to say, Quick, that he's considered himself off-role, maintaining about 300, 400 LP with only weeks into learning this role is highly impressive for Massive's top laner. And then joining alongside him is someone with plenty of accolades at CTB, a really recognizable name for those who have been in the amateur scene for quite a while. Coach Charlie is his other name as well, because he's got that really recognizable LCO experience, I believe, for Pentanet back in the day. Lysaea is another name that people will know a lot of. He's been in comp for the longest time, mainly representing Massive, but had a brief stint in Valkyrie where he indeed played for the enemy support for UQ Eagles. And then the bot lane, Massive are going to round it off with Lucasade, otherwise known as Lucas, alongside Resurgence. One of the big talking points for Massive going into this Quicksand is their support Resurgence, who's actually coming into this roster fairly new. So a bit of a slight upset in terms of overall synergy for Massive going into this first round. they'll have to really make up for that lost time potentially to get a really decent start into UQ Eagles, which I'd love to talk about next. But it is just going to be fascinating tonight, really, because UQ Eagles are a uni team. And what that means for me is they've got a lot of resources, Quicksand. So uni teams often known for having plenty of scrims to go through, facilities, all of it. And so they're going to try and make up for that experience by putting on a really great performance on the Rift. Starting off into
Well,
their
Casual,
top
I think
side.
along with that, it's really
Yeah,
important to
go.
mention that university teams also face a lot of pressure as well.
You
For
do.
they have competitive spots. I think all the teams we see that are individual for something like Massive, of course, the spots were contested or trialed for, but even in a university, these spots are important. Some universities offering out scholarships for these positions. So
Mm.
I think the pressure these players are feeling are otherwise quite immense on top of the resources they have.
Oh, 100%. And so all the more important to actually put on a really decent performance tonight and get a really decent start into this tournament. So HD Times is a similar player to Lasay. We've seen him quite a bit, often in a very similar role, weak siding, playing for his team, playing that more supportive role. A really, really strong tank, weak side player. And then they've also, of course, got their jungler and noob jungler. So very much play on words there. A really, really proficient player, particularly on that one champion. We may be able to see that on our screens. Kind of hard to guess who that is. I get it kind of like the classic Riot skins are now looking less and less like their champions. That is indeed Evelyn, and it is absolutely his prior pick. So I doubt we'll get to see it tonight if Massive have done any amount of research. But if it does get through, oh boy, all eyes on UQ Eagles jungler. And then rounding off the rest of the comp, they've got FTR, which is an old Gogiro player, came up through the Iron to Plat scene, but that's not to diss him by any means. Quicksand has been comfortably high elo for a very, very long time. What will be interesting for FTR and what he's going to need to show is his adaptation to the mid lane meta. That's kind of falling away more from those carry champions that he's really proficient on, the Zeds, the Irelias like we see on screen, to more things like even the Nautilus, so completely rotating themselves to being supportive. So FTR will be something for our viewers to keep their eyes on. And then the bot lane for UQ Eagles is going to be Soy alongside Kane, which is that old teammate of Lasea and MWB as well. So UQ Eagles absolutely able to match Massive point for point here, and that just makes it all the more exciting as we get ready for our draft phase.
That's right. So we're going to be seeing both of those teams line up together against each other in such a battle of rivalries. And as you mentioned,
Oh,
that we have players that have played with each other on the same team. And that kind of puts us in the point where we don't really know who can predict what, how we move on to what. Either way, with that, I think we're running a little low on time. So we are going to jump right over to the draft and we'll be with you guys back after the next game.
yeah, see you then. Very exciting. Oh, we jump back?
Okay.
Okay, we're back.
Okay. Well, that happened.
Quick, I'm glad we've actually been given a bit more time from production because honestly, one thing that I think we failed to mention is the rest of Group C. So we focused our eyes a lot more on 3-5 Army, and it's obvious for doing that, right? Because they are such strong opponents. But alongside Massive Esports and UQ Eagles are such sort of sustainable and recognizable orgs as 95X, making their reappearance. Quicksand, it's been such a long time since we've actually had a tournament. We finally get to see these guys come back with a really, really decent roster, pulling out MVP Avalanche players like Wudon in the top lane, Dell, who we've seen plenty of as well, Vale, who's been coaching one of the Iron to Plat teams, now gets to prove himself as a player as well. So lots of interesting sides for 95X. And then you've got very much the more grassroots end of this tournament, Quicksand, in Mcom Academy and Antic Esport Imposter. But we're not there yet, are we? Because we're here for UQ Eagles and Massive Esports, and I cannot wait to hand over to two of my favorite casters, other than you, Quicksand, of course, in the entire world. It's Papa Pike and Weapon. Let's take it away as we get ready for draft and see what they're going to get cooking for us tonight.
You guys in a bit.
Weapon, I love being cooked up a little bit. Hey, like what an absolute
Yeah.
blast of an intro coming
Big
out
fan.
from my good friends Quicksand and Casual. Thank you so much. What did we nickname them actually before?
What do we come up with? Quick and casual.
Yeah, quick and casual. A
Yeah.
casual quickie. Nothing wrong with that. But
Oh,
guys,
he's
welcome.
already started.
Oh, look, we look, it's Papa Plaque. What do you expect? We've got some fantastic games on for you tonight, looking to see some of the highest rated ELO players in Oceania. Weapon, are you as excited as I am?
Dude, I'm so hyped. The guys talked about it in the pre-show. This tournament is stacked. I feel like I say that every time we go into one of these LCO events, but they just keep getting better and better. This time we've got a couple of LCO players in the mix and a bunch of rising stars. And we were talking about this before we went live. It's really hard to say who's going to come out on top in a lot of these groups, especially Group D.
Oh, look, the Group of Death, or the Will of D, as I'm going to start nicknaming it, as any of those people out there know that I love One Piece, obvious from my background. Mate, there's some big teams coming out. It's nice to see the Oceanic region starting to come together, forming its own OCS, as it might
Finally
be.
doing it.
It's here. The training grounds are live. We're getting ready for the game. We're going to jump in just a second. But let's talk about these players. We got some really good insights. Who are you looking to see as a standout player in tonight's games?
I mean, there's a couple of names that anyone who's watched these amateur tournaments will certainly recognize. The two that come to mind, obviously, will be CTB and Lasser. Of course, CTB, formerly known as Charlie Wraith, one of the coaches of Pentanet back in the day, has been over in Europe coaching Galaxy Racer as well. So certainly a bit of a journeyman in the esports world. And last year did come back in and kind of say, I want to try and elevate the OCE scene a bit by leading from the front, joining some amateur orgs. So cool to see him alongside Lasser in this new revamped massive esports lineup. And that's going to be the duo that I'm going to be looking at for that team, because I think a lot is done around the mid-jungle duo in this current meta, really translating that lead towards a hyper carry in the bot lane. And Lasser just hasn't really been that player, right? He's always been kind of that pressure valve sort of control player who just kind of sits back and scales. And I think being in a situation where he does need to be that guy who pops off is going to be an interesting look for him.
No, absolutely. It's going to be really interesting to see the dynamic between a lot of these players. As we know, the bot side and the jungle, really the sort of the headliners for a lot of these games nowadays. If you're AD carry or your jungler get ahead, that can turn the tide. So we're really excited to see some of these plays come out. Obviously, top and mid being also quite crucial as well, coming from a mid laner myself. But we are in drafting phase, ladies and gentlemen. We're getting to the bans. First game of the training grounds. Let's get deep. And we keep jumping out.
We're having some issues. It's fine. We'll get to it eventually for sure. But
there's only so much we can do.
It's all good. Yeah, apparently we've got some banter in the chat. Apparently the guys are gonna. There's some issues with one of the players' clients, so it happens every now and then. I think I just heard Josh, our producer, yell "Riot client" or something. But that's the world we live in. So let's talk about the rest of these players, right? So it's UQ Eagles. Now, you and I don't know about you personally. I've done a couple of the university games, usually the domain of Mr. Formal and Warp over there, doing good work in QUT. But I get a glimpse of it every now and then. So I'm not hugely familiar with these players. But for what we've been told, there's actually a couple of players here who are actually former teammates.
Yes, I believe that. Who are they again? You gotta jog my mind, because I do watch a little bit of the university circuit. A lot of the QT, actually, I just asked to try and join them, so I'm waiting on an email. But no,
Kai, check your inbox, please.
You know where I am. I'll be here. But no, again, I want to talk about these players. We've seen I've noticed, in fact, that the university circuits have been really popping off, playing some really unique picks. So let's talk about these players.
Yeah, of course. So it is HD Times was a former, I believe it was former teammate of Lasser and MWE when he was on Valkyrie. MWE formerly an AD carry player, from what we've been told. Casual, love the man, gave us this huge rundown on these teams. He knows everything that's happening in the scene. So it's going to be interesting here, because obviously a clash of former teammates, maybe some known quantities when it comes to how your opponents play. But dude, we made it. We're in draft.
We're in draft, and we're seeing bans coming thick, fast, and everything we want. We got the Jinx being taken off the board, obviously looking at that bot lane, and Ornn as well, taking out that tankiness in the top lane into the late game scaling. Any particular bans we should be looking for here, Weapon?
I mean, the one that's going to be on everyone's lips is going to be the Nautilus. We've seen it in MSI. It's popping off. It can be played in mid, even mid support, and even top if you are feeling that way inclined. But we'll have to see if either of these players take it, because we were talking about the importance of mid jungle popping off. FDR, a player we know likes to play these kind of volatile assassin matchups. So if you get some sort of carry in the jungle, or one of those kindreds, a Vi, a Wukong, something that can do a bit of damage alongside that Nautilus, shut that mid lane matchup down, and then you just have this CC bot roaming around. That could be a path to success for Lasser if he goes that route.
Look, and literally speaking of, we see Wukong and Vi banned out straight off the bat. So a lot of these engaged very strong bot lanes also coming in as Xayah is being picked up, which I really like, even though they saw Rakan banned. Quite an interesting pick. It depends on who they're going to pair that with, but first picking Xayah, you're showing a couple of your hands there, Weapon.
You are, and you're also showing that maybe you don't want to play towards the bot side, but what you've left up here is, of course, going to be the Caitlyn, which is going to be locked in. And I think that just frees you up to maybe focus on your other lanes, knowing that maybe that bot lane isn't going to be the priority. So I love the Viego here, and I really am starting to see some sort of mid-jungle duo with setup for the Viego. So loving things like the Nautilus, of course, but even things like Galio could follow it and be that ganking duo that you need from the mid lane. FTR... Sorry, go ahead.
I think there are some big things with that Nautilus pick. We do see a lot of champions being taken. Like I noticed the Rakan being taken off, which is such a strong pick into the Nautilus too. A little bit with that poke, a little bit of disengage, and the quickness.
There it is.
There's the Irelia that we.
Oh, let's go.
That is spicy. Let's break it down.
Yeah, I love this. I love Aurelia, my favorite champion in this game. I have a lot of concerns, though. It's not a champion that you want to pick blind, but you have got the Talia, so I think this probably indicates that this is going to be a top lane Aurelia for HD times, which goes against what we were told it was going to be this tank matchup. So now you have the opportunity to look for some sort of counter pick if you save it on red side, and you're going to pick the Ari in response, which is a decent one into the Talia. So there's that sort of facilitator that we were looking for going alongside the Viego, and I like this in terms of a dive duo if you're going to have this Ari Viego. There's the Nautilus taken away.
There's the Nautilus, but I want to break this Talia, though. Talia could be looking to play jungle here as well. It's very stable as well in the jungle, too. So a lot of roam potential, good kiting, very impactful to invade this Viego as best as possible. So I don't think we should take that off the board because those walls can be so impactful in a good fight post-6. So I think Talia shouldn't be taken out of that, but I agree. I do think it is most likely a Talia in the mid lane. Lux being taken off the board, too. I like that. I think a lot of CC. Lux being played so much more is such a impressive range and poke bot lane for that Caitlyn too. So depends what they're going to pair with Caitlyn here. Weapon, what would you recommend in this sort of situation?
I mean, the other classic pairing has been the Morgana, but I don't think that's as good anymore. It's maybe okay given what you're seeing here, where you could flash forward as a Morgana, and the chains do stay on if the Xayah ults, so it's not a bad option, but looks like it's going to be support bans all the way. And the Nautilus and the Blitzcrank ban maybe indicate that we're looking for a bit more of an enchanter look, so maybe it will be that Milio, which is available for this tournament.
I think the hard part is Milio is going to be perfect alongside this Caitlyn. Think about the extra range. Think about disengage on dashes coming in too. That's Irelia taken out of that team fight. So if you can negate that and negate this Irelia jumping in, hitting you with a Vanguard, that's a lot taken off. But there's the Thresh as the final ban. I like that too. We're really seeing how impactful support is in a lot of these games. They just want to take every crucial pick off the board here, Weapon.
Yeah, I think Milio actually feels really good, especially given the fact that you may not have the most vulnerable target, but the Morgana is going to get locked in, so that does give you another avenue to play through, especially before pre-6 comes through that Xayah, and she doesn't have the Featherstorm to get out of the way. Looking for a bit of frontline, I think, here on the UQ Eagles side, so I think one of those beefy supports has to come through, and you're probably looking at something like Braum. That's probably really the only thing that's left, so the Gnar is going to help.
I do like the Nasa that will basically lock us in that it is an Irelia mid Talia jungle, which I really like how this is shaping up. You get a really strong engage with that Gnar. The second he gets Mega Gnar form, he's going to be laughing in this backline, but you got so much range and a lot of lockdown coming out on red side too, so you got to be very careful as that jumping in as Gnar. But ooh, if that's an Alistair, I am keen. I love a good Alistair.
Yeah, it's an Alistair, but it's into a Morgana. I don't think, especially with the Emacs coming out, you have enough to get through that Black Shield. I don't know what the numbers are on Alistair these days, so that just feels like a bit of a concession in the matchup. It will be good later on, for sure, helping you lock down things like the Ari, things like the Viego, eject them from the fight, but in lane, not feeling too good, and it looks like we are just going to get that tank matchup on the top side, Malphite into Gnar. Dude, it works. What can you say?
I like it. It's a full armor or full AP? I hope it's full AP, purely just for entertainment's sake.
I hope it's not. It's definitely nah, but it will do its job, and its job right now is it's going to be going on top of the Zaya and the Aurelia, maybe even the Talia if you can find the angle. You've got 3 good targets and an R button that works, then everyone just follows in. You're looking for those kind of long-range, grindy sort of reset fights with Ari and Viego getting multiple resets, multiple form changes from the Viego, and you just kind of go through the fight with Morgana backing you up Black Shields. I really like this composition that the Massive Side have put together. Actually, it's clean, it's consistent, it looks like it's going to be pretty straightforward to play.
It feels like it's almost, and forgive me if I'm wrong, less mechanically inclined. Like, one misstep as Irelia, goodbye. Like, you will get taken out. Like, if you get hit with one charm, one Morgana bind, you get hit with a Viego stun, like, you gotta be so careful with where you're stepping, and you're gonna be stepping in a lot of different places. So I think that's gonna be a really crucial thing. I honestly think Stet has his work cut out from on this Talia in this jungle. I think that's going to be a pick you're going to have to be very aggressive with early, having big impacts on your lanes. But I'm expecting, hopefully, bot lane prio too, if you can sort of start securing stuff down there. But how do you get prio into a Caitlyn Morgana who can just threaten from so far away?
Yeah, you definitely can't. And that's going to be the thing, right? It's the Alistair. You've got this... He does get healing through his passive, of course, but you're going to be just constantly poked out, and that's just going to make it so much more difficult to get any sort of priority and any sort of setup alongside this Talia. And when it does happen, it's going to be all in. But again, it's into that Black Shield. There's so much working against you, and I think what you said is very important. This is a much easier composition to play from Massive. You hit one bit of crowd control, you're going to hit the rest. Aurelia E can miss, Talia Flick can miss, Zaya ult is reliant, Zaya Featherpool is reliant on positioning, Nara ult needs to come in from a flank, and Alistair's the only point-and-click crowd control you have. So Mechanics Max has to be on display for UQ. They can do it, but it's going to be so much more impressive if they do pull it off, and it's going to look so much worse if they don't.
Yeah, and I think before we go to intermission, one last thing I want to say on that. We're not watching Iron to Plat anymore, Weapon.
No.
This is no longer the minor leagues. We are heading into the big leagues. We're seeing top-tier players. We got to be more confident in these guys pulling these compositions off. Yes, it looks harder to pull off, but that's because I'm only a gold player. I don't know half of what I'm going to be doing, so I'm expecting Irelia to be popping off this game. So, guys, we're going to be right back after this intermission with the first game. It's going to be a big one. We'll see you soon. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are back. Game number 1. Ornn has forged his weapons. We have got Irelia with her quick blades. We are keen for a fierce fight. 2 Titan teams looking for a cheeky fight down in this bot lane, potentially. Weapon, it's going to be a big one. They just missed that ward.
Ooh.
Sorry.
Oh, you want forward brush control if you got a Morgana? That's a bit awkward, but they are going to be spotted on the way in, so I think everyone's just going to back off. And 2 Titan teams, like you said, MT1 on one side, UQ Eagles from the university scene facing off against each other. First round of the Mcom training grounds. I'm real hyped to be here. It's been a long time coming, and these are 2 teams that I think could look to do some damage in this group. Certainly not the strongest teams when you look at the individual power rankings of these teams, but certainly a team that could get some upsets and could potentially look to do some damage to the other teams on the way out, I think.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You got to be careful. There's a lot of big pressure names here. Lesia, who is just on your screen, is absolutely one of them. I'm excited to see how he can pull off the Ari into this Irelia matchup. Let's break it down though. We're on patch 13.9. Had some big changes. So obviously we know Nico's not going to be coming into these games, unfortunately. But some big faces, some big names potentially coming out. Milio, Yumi, slight good changes there.
Yeah, certainly a couple that we are going to see. Of course, the Yumi is going to be banned in this tournament, keeping in accordance with the MSI ruling, which I think everyone is going to be pretty stoked about. I don't know if anyone really enjoys playing it. There's the power of the Morgana Caitlyn, by the way. Land that binding, the follow-up comes through, and you just get free poke, and you can see it's going to translate into a bit of lane control for Lucozade and Resurgence, who are going to be just keeping up the priority, and that's going to unlock Viego to basically do whatever he wants on this map. Right now, it's clearing up towards... looks like from top to bot, so maybe looking for an early play down towards the bot side.
Look.
So is just eating him.
Just you can't afford that this early, especially as a Zaya. It's just not going to end well for you heading into the mid game.
Yeah, definitely not. Has started the longsword 3 pots, so he knows the poke is going to be coming his way, but eventually it is just going to start stacking up, and you maybe even look for some kill angles with the Viego. Nice stun by FDR.
Yeah, really going in. Still taking a
Alright.
big chunk of damage on the way out. Very interesting. We can't forget the Alistair healing though as well. There,
course.
Kane going to be healing up so much. So obviously this is a particular pick. They saw the heavy poke lane. Maybe they picked the Alistair saying, hey, late game engage, but also heal up as much as we can. But look at the damage.
That's just gross. It was one binding, then a bunch of auto attacks from the Caitlyn. And so worth noting, of course, that the Aurelia does have a decent CS lead off some trading onto Lysair, making the Ari nice and uncomfortable. Has gone for the Cole, which has been something we've been seeing a lot of high elo Korean Aurelia players do, where they will start on they will start on the door and shield rather. Then they'll go for the cull, so they get that proc all at once, and that gets you closer to that Blade of the Ruin King spike, which is so important for Aurelia to snowball these games out of control. She's not really a champion who scales very well, but she does, of course, get to that 1-2 item spike, and then she hopes to be unkillable. So Lysair and CTP must be cognizant of this, and they must try and shut this down, because, of course, FTR, this is the champion that we've represented him with on the graphic. This guy knows how to play this pick.
This is his champion. Like, if he's picking anyone, it is Irelia. So we got to see him pulling out something big here, though. Weapon, I want to see something fancy. I want to see some fancy feet coming out. But very quiet game so far. It's nice to see like a bit of a slower start. Obviously, it's just bot lane with a heavy poke. But look, so you're already back to full health, almost, maybe 3/4 health, which is what you want to be seeing. Very good. Again, like I said, I think that Alistair pick was quite crucial. But Nara at the same time being poked out. Dorian's ring can't be underestimated, especially into a poke like Malphite.
Yeah, with the Comet as well, extra damage is going to come through. CTB is lurking, knows that FTR could look for a trade here, and I think he's just shadowing Lysair so he can get this crash, can get the reset, and get back to base. He's not quite got Lost Chapter money under his belt, but it will be probably boots and maybe an amp tone, then a bit of a reset. See him set up top.
They do get the knock up. It could be a little bit of a fight. No mana on MWB. And they just walk out of there.
That's a Malphite. You get a good, decent flick, but CTB here.
CTB is going for it. Has to burn the flash to Leia over the wall. Nice avoidance there.
Yeah, really nice. Draws the flash out of the Talia, so potentially the next time the Talia comes out and you've got CTB in position for the counter gank, that could be a dead Talia if the position isn't perfect from CM stats, so has to be careful. Nice movement by Lysair to dodge out that flawless duet. I play earlier, so I know the names of the moves that she does, and that's probably like the only one I could consistently tell you.
Well, what about Vanguard's Edge?
Vanguard's Edge,
the one thing we need to know is ultimates.
No, sorry. Let me rephrase. I know Aurelia's spell names because I play her, and she's the only one I can confidently say I know the names of the spells of.
Okay, fair enough. I appreciate that.
It's not the play-by-play thing.
Oh, no, that's fair. Yeah, no, that's all me, baby.
Yeah, it's all you. You know them.
Look, well, do I?
I'm sure you do. You got this.
I don't know.
I believe.
Yeah, look, I'm gonna back myself. I know them.
Yeah, of course you do.
If I don't know them, that's what the whole game does. It gives me this information. I just have to click on them.
You just mouse over. Really good.
Yeah.
We know what we're talking about, guys.
It's about life hacks. It's basically life hacks.
Yeah, so it continues to be a bit of a slow one. We saw some angles here from CTB where he did try and find some opportunities to influence the bot lane, maybe try and look for a counter gank on mid lane, but just hasn't been able to find it outside of that flash drawn on the top side. So this feels like it does favor the side of Massive, because remember, this is a team that probably wants to get to the team fight stages, get the Malphite, have those kind of front to back setups with the Malphite going forward, and then the dive coming in from your Viego and the Ari, and they're even going to pick up this first dragon, so more pressure on those objectives is going to help as this game goes on.
Look, she is there, but you got the Prio in the bot lane. That's where you want it to be, and look, Resurgence can just walk up here, gives that little bit of extra pressure. Caitlyn's got control of this wave, but you can't ignore Talia off in the wins. Malphite actually coming down for that just as insurance. Really nice to see.
Going to give up a couple of plates in topside to HT times, but all said and done, I think you feel pretty good about that one. You're not necessarily caring about the CSD of MWB at this point. You're really just looking to secure that early objective. And that means that as this game goes on, and another binding lands, as this game goes on, you're just going to get more and more pressured to contest those dragons and to face jet into things like the Malphite, into the Ari, even into the Viego.
It was nice little aggression, FTR. Just moving forward. It's nice to see, but here's a 3-man gank as Talia is here. They know Morgana's good spell binding as Kane gets the ignite. Good bind does go down too. Could they actually pick it up? But there goes the Weaver's Wall. Is going to be enough as they do get the good lockdown. Can it be enough as they're going for a little bit more? Resurgence caught out. Has to use the net over the wall, but taken out. First blood heading over to Talia.
Yeah, and despite the flash drawn, the failed play up towards topside, it's going to be the first gank going successfully over to CM Stat on MWB, missing the Malphite ultimate, which is something we've been seeing way too much of in MSI. But the play on the bot side does work out eventually. You can see the Black Shield was used to try and nullify that incoming engage from Kane, but and they even tried to return damage. I think a little bit of hesitance there from Lucozade, not quite sure if they could finish the kill and get out of dodge, but in the end, the collapse comes in. But response is going to be this Rift Herald on the top side. So CTB keeping his head above water and making sure his team's still in this game.
That's it. And objection control is so important as HD Times may have got a tower plate. Hop, skip, and a jump over that wall. Does get knocked back. Black Shield does do a fantastic job. But there's the flash.
Vanguard's
Edge is going in. Gets the stun as well. Picks it up. FTR doing an excellent job as Alistair is here as well. Looking for the double kill coming over too. One more hit does it. But Atalia picks it up. And a huge return fire.
Yeah, really nice. Responding to the Herald take straight away. Everyone burns their flashes in that play. FDR, it flashes in with the Vanguard's Edge, comes in on the backside of the fight, has Kane to back him up, who has been deployed from the bot lane, and the amount of CC they bring to bear is just too much, and they just run down the kills, pick up the Morgana and the Malphite on the back end of it. So it feels like UQ Eagles, despite maybe not having the best of laning phases, not quite finding the advantage they need outside of the mid lane, they are finding the counterpunches, and they're finding that with this proactive Aurelia pick from FTR.
And again, we've noticed that these players, they're moving to these objectives so well. Even though we're seeing Blueside might not be securing them, they're there to respond, and they're still picking up big things on the side of it. But I want to see them being a little bit more proactive. It's hard when you're versing the Kayla Morgana, pushing them in permanently. Like, look where this wave is. You've got to try and freeze that as best as possible to get some control back. But we're seeing the champions starting to scale. Items are exactly the same on both these 80 carries. So it looks like this Zaya is trying to keep up as best she can, even though she's 20 CS behind.
Yeah, items are exactly the same, but it is going to be a minor gold difference here. About 400 gold all said and done. So that extra assist is going to pay a little bit of dividends, but so that pressure really hasn't amounted to a whole lot, but it has amounted to control. And
yes.
While the Viego hasn't done a whole lot with it down towards the bot side, he is now once again down towards the bot side, killing his Grom. And we'll have to see if there is going to be another attempt at a lane gank as he is pinging his way in. Could be a setup, but CM Stat is waiting in the wings as well.
Look, this is the return fight that they're sort of looking for. Viego's been very strong, just trying to farm up, look at these objectives, but now he's looking to make some pressure in these lanes too, so it's nice to see Viego is online. Good stun coming out. Aurelia going for a tower, dodges out the bind. Beautiful play. Oh, but there's Gnar hitting the Gnar too, but that is a big Malphite. He's got those steel cap boots, he's got a bramble vest. It's not too much Gnar can do into that.
Yeah, this is always going to be a losing matchup on the top side for MWB. So he's just here to catch what CS he can and maybe rotate for a player here and there. But down towards the mid lane, we did see just the prowess of FTR on this Aurelia pick, making it work for himself. He's even nearly going to have that Cull pop as well. So that massive injection of gold going to give him towards that Blade of the Ruin King spike, where he can be so much more proactive going forward with that Blade of the Ruin King to really lock people down. Makes what would normally be a short trade for the Aurelia on a mage like Ari, it makes it basically a kill every single time if you just chase them down after that passive is procced.
And can we just appreciate the unimpeccable warding that is on blue side right now? Have they had this whole bot side jungle? Oh, good trade though coming out. CTB taken to half health. But look at the warding though still, trying to clear that out because there's just so much of it.
So much vision. And Resurgence is not quite going to get this one. He will eventually. And it's going to be a dragon fight. So second dragon point up available for MT1. Let's see if they go for it because they do have the Malphite coming down. So this looks like we're going to have our first real team fight of the game.
And this is exactly what we want to see. Gnar is just trying to proxy that wave top lane. But Infernal Dragon coming in nice and strong as they are starting to pressure back up, looking to clear wards. But so there's the engaged are there, but to get a little bit more. Black Shield goes down, Vanguard's Edge also there. FTR has already been taking out. Lacia picks that one up as they're going for a little bit more. Feather Storm, so strong, they're looking for this drag. It's losing health, shut down. That's the ace in the hole, and Kaylin picks it up and they trade the drag.
And it was just two too eager by Kane. He went in and there was just no one in position to follow up the kill. No feathers on the ground for Soy to lock down the target as he went in on CTB of all people. And meanwhile, on the backside, Lasea picks up the kill on CM Stet and FTR, who are just caught in the backside and locked down. So well coordinated by Massive, finding the kills where they needed to and absorbing the pressure from CTB. And now Dragon under their belt. Number 2, Infernal stacking up. And they're going to be able to put out more pressure on this bot side as Soy and Kane just haven't quite found the impact they wanted in this early game.
Yeah, and it's going to be heading towards a big one, as it is actually an Ocean Soul weapon. What do you think about that for this game state?
I mean, if you're a team with a tank and the other team doesn't really have a dedicated farming tank, you're going to be real happy about it. Sam Stat looking top, looking bot.
Walter's going burning the flash as they're still going a little bit more. The Black Shield, but CTB picks up Alistair. Bing bang bong, and this cheeky little moo cow is going hard as Sui is just off to the side too. But here's Irelia looking for a little bit more. Double kill, heading for Viego. Absolute weapon.
Yeah, we'll give him that one. CTB just in the right place at the right time, read the counter gank coming in from CM Stat, and there it is, like we talked about. It's these long extended fights where Viego gets the multiple resets. That in that case, it was just Kane hanging around after the dragon fight with no health to speak of, and he just gets locked down and killed when he tries to follow the engage from CM Stat. And I mean, of course he's going to die, but the worst thing is you give over the Alistair body to CTB, who just uses it to great effect and uses it as a secondary engage tool and picks up those kills. Now 2, 1, and 0. Divine Sunderer completed means he's tankier, he does more damage, and this team fight is starting to look real scary for Massive.
And look, with just all the kills predominantly on Talia, that's a lot of AP damage coming down, picking up the Ludens too, which was for that fight previously. Bork has just been secured, and Triforce for this Gnar. But I'm just looking at the game state too, and this bot lane has such a strong handle with what looks to be almost a 40 CS lead. This Caitlyn is going to be doing some damage, and with a Black Shield on top of her, you've got to be scared of those engages.
Yeah, exactly. And that's going to be the main thing. It's the threat of that Black Shield that stops you from really... It makes you hesitate when you pull the trigger. And that means more time that this Caitlyn gets to hit your Aurelia, who, yes, will be good in an all-in situation. We've seen it a few times where if she goes in and is able to run down targets, then you invariably win that. But the more time you take hesitating about that all-in, the more work that Lucozade will get done. So, and the more bindings that Resurgence will be able to hit. So you have to be decisive here if you're going to find the winning play for UQ Eagles, and MT1 just not going to give them the chances more often than not.
And the big thing here is all about that full-on putting the pressure on. It's what we're seeing from these teams. Like, it is 15 minutes in. Second Rift Herald is already gone. CTB is just putting so much premise on being at these objectives. It's hard for them to really keep up, and although Talia doing an absolute fantastic job in this game state, ganking a lot, just isn't getting her chance into these fights.
I take everything back that I said about Morgana. Resurgence is making this thing work for himself. Like you said, it's just objective control. They're just forcing the... Oh, Malphite.
That's a big calm. Like, what do you do as a Gnar there? You're not Mega. What can you do?
You can't do anything. You die. You see a grey screen, apparently, and they're just putting on pressure across the map. It's objectives taken basically on spawn. It's towers pushed and waves pushed, and all it is just keeping UQ Eagles unable to react or unable to make any proactive plays, which they really desperately want to be able to do with this Aurelia and with this fed Talia looking for the Weaver's Wall in to set up the plays. But if you're constantly responding, you just don't get the chance.
And that's what we talked about in the Champ Select Riot Weapon. We said it's not about responding, it's about being proactive. It feels like Blueside is just so responsive in this game. They don't have their own game plan going in their way. So what we're just seeing is reactive plays. And that's not where they want to be. Like you said, we want to get Irelia jumping in on these fights, and we're just not getting it. So it is in full control of Red Slide, just absolutely controlling the game state, setting the pace, and it looks like they're going to take this one home.
Yeah, for sure. But it is going to be responded. A little bit of gold back into FTR's pocket as he picks up that top lane tier 1. And this is the other thing you can do with a Fed Aurelia, is that you can just put her in a side lane. It doesn't really matter what your other lanes are doing. If you can force a 1v1 somewhere, or even a 1v2, the Aurelia can win those. You could potentially buy yourself an avenue in this game and sort of let the rest of the map do what it will, as long as you're there for the objective fights. And even if you've maybe taken someone out and teleported in, you've created an advantage for yourself. So unfortunately, it does look like they're going to be grouping up, and that's a stun.
The CC chain is just too much. As Alice is going back
Pain's
in.
in.
Vanguard's edge, it's so big as Resurgence could be taken out. Picks up both layers. He's going to be doing so much damage. There's the charm forward. Nice little play, but it could be. FTR.
FTR.
Unstoppable force come. MWB is just laughing his way to the bank as they're still trying to fight this wide. CTB does have to get out of there as fast as possible, but they're so low here, Weapon. What do you do into this fight as they've taken control? And it's all up to Caitlyn now as they do have to back off. Maybe concede the dragon.
Maybe concede the dragon. It's going to be a reset here from the UQ side. So yeah, it is going to be a dragon going over to Massive if they do decide to take it. But you can see how hard it was. It was Vanguard's edge. I believe it was a flash in from FTR as well. So much thrown at the front line. And if they just kite backwards, yes, the Aurelia looks good a little bit in the fight. She is able to pick up the kill on Resurgence, but that's all she gets. But they are going to reset here. So it looks like they're going to surrender this third Drake. And you do have the luxury with the 2 Drakes under your belt to give up this single Ocean Drake. It's not going to result in a whole lot. And more importantly, you just got away with a fight that you probably should have been completely blasted in. So you're going to reset, buy your items up, and look for the next one.
Oh, look, and that's just the thing we were talking about. How does this team sort of make their comeback? And they've just shown that they absolutely can. They've picked up a tower, which was actually first tower of the game. We forgot to mention that one, top tower on the red side. So it's really nice to see this team still being proactive, still showing up, even though they're slightly behind. They're ahead now. They're winning. They're up in about 2-3k gold. They're chilling.
Yeah, they're actually not doing too badly in terms of the gold score, but it feels like the tempo has been largely dictated by Massive in terms of where the plays are happening and where the pushes are happening. Hasn't resulted in any towers being taken down, but remember, this is a composition we set up that does scale a little bit better. You've got the Malphite, he's going to get tankier and tankier, and you don't have that dedicated tank. So if the Malphite finds an angle and you're able to play the fights out slowly, the Caitlyn comp will eventually win. So it's good that they found a bit of gold for themselves, but they have to be able to use it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's like one win is you've won the battle, but you haven't won the war, is the old saying there, Weapon. So again, objectives on the map. We got a Baron coming up in 10 seconds. Could be an interesting one.
Could be where we look to fight next as Caitlyn ult just to get some poke down, and here we see FTR is just on the top lane. I think he really does just want to force that 1v1, especially once he gets that the shield bow completed is the degenerate item that Aurelias like to build. I hate it. I'm a big Divine Sunderer enjoyer on my Aurelias, but I understand why people do it. It gives you lifesteal, it gives you attack speed, and gives you a shield, so you can go all in like an absolute maniac. And that is what FTR is probably going to look to do in a 1v1 setting, and maybe hope to survive the team fights when he does go in, which he so far has had a bit of a struggle on.
Oh, look, and that's what we want to see, though, right? We want to see an Irelia going hard and jumping all in head first, or balls deep, as gamers like to say. But look, we're going to have to see. Well, I do. I'm a gamer. I'll be the silent minority.
Game.
Yeah, I game.
Silent minority. Finally, a voice for the voiceless. Papa Pike, thank you.
This is my voice.
So
As we do see it now taken. Oh, but that's a Weaver's wall. Oh, wait, what was that interaction? Did you see that?
Yeah, that was weird. I think it was a Ari dash that got interrupted by the wall proccing.
Yeah. Wait, there's a fight. Oh, unstoppable force going in. Could this be a dead nah as the ace in the hole does land? Lucasade also picking that one up, but a good knockback does get Resurgence's flush out as they're dashing forward. Featherstorm as well does land, but still, you're now in the wrong spot as you do get picked up. Double kill heading over to Caitlyn. She is the big force we got to be worried about as Malphite is still in this backline. You got to be careful as this Talia doing so much damage. We can't ignore that, and they have to back off.
Yeah, they have to back off, and you can see it there again. It's full dive against a composition that has tools to kind of kite back and get away from that dive. They go onto Resurgence, and he has the Black Shield to survive so long, but it is going to result in some pressure in mid. Kane going in.
Wait, that's a TP coming out as well. Looks like they do want to try and get to this fight. Ari looking to join in, still gets knocked back, and they just do so much poke.
Yeah, so much poke, and once it's a 5v5, you can see how the composition operates. MWB dives onto someone in the backline. In this case, it wasn't necessarily backline. It was a nub that they caught isolated on the side of the fight. So kind of left the rest of the team unguarded, something they maybe have to be cognizant of moving forward. But even so, Resurgence bought a lot of time for the rest of the fight. FTR put on his carry pants and tried his absolute hardest. A lot of gold in the belt of CM Stead as well, so able to throw down a lot of damage to complete the kill, but unfortunately Soy had to commit a lot to get that kill. I believe even his flash went down, and you just can't be doing that. You need to be able to follow your engage, but unfortunately Soy just caught out.
Oh, look, and that will happen. Like when you start to get a little bit at the same time, Zaya doesn't have to worry too much later as the game goes. She can be quite strong late game, but like you said before, this Caitlyn's now got an IE on her belt. You have to be so careful of just the poke. But here comes Nah. Look, and HT times when he's on CTB as he does get away successfully. Shroud keeping him alive.
So Na's ultimate was up, and his Mega Gnar just timed out as he went for the jump in. That was really unfortunate because it definitely would have been a catch on CTB just before Dragon spawned, but unfortunately not going to get that. So you walk away with your life, and CTB feels pretty good about that one. Still has his flash as well if that would have been potentially blown.
Oh, look, it's Cam. We got big items up on the board too. Ari actually hasn't died, but looking for the Everfrost. Does go for a little bit more. There's the stun forward, but look at Irelia. She's in this backline. Vanguard's edge does go down. They're isolated. They're trying to take out this Malphite. He does flash, and he gets over this wall. But look where Caitlyn is. She's taking out this but here comes FTR. Has to get another flash out of him too. Big damage. CTB doing so much, and they just pick up even more. Double kill. Heading over to actually, you know who that was? That was Viego, but he turned into Talia. So chat, don't get confused by that as they're looking for Baron.
Yeah, really nice fight there by Massive. Lucozade in particular playing to the edge of his abilities there. Drew out the engage from FTR, who was the real threat in this fight. Everyone else is just kind of set dressing there. Even the Talia not really finding the angles. Got a decent flick at the start, but FTR tried to go in and make it happen for himself, but Lucozade used the flash to get the response, and I'm starting to see what you're looking at.
Oh, did you see that they took the drag?
Oh, they took the drag. Okay, cool. Yeah.
Motion, but they traded Baron.
Traded Baron though. Yeah.
Worth? What do you think?
Worth, I guess. Yeah. I mean, heads up that you're not going to contest Baron, but knowing that you have members down and FTR was chunked out, and I didn't see what happened to CM Stat, but they make the decision. They make the decision to trade an objective, and that's got to be at least respectable, right?
Look, I think you got to look at how the wave stayed. They still want to maintain control. Baron gives them that control. A third drag won't give them that same level of pressure at 25 minutes in. So I like the Baron call here. I like the drag trade as well.
Yeah, I think I prefer the Baron. I think everyone would, but respectable decision at least to try and trade something back for yourself as you are finding yourself pushed back against the wall. Malphite on the bot side is going to send in that wave. You've got the 3-man unit in the mid lane, so it's just a classic 1-3-1 setup with the Ari playing into the Gnar, which is kind of the lane assignment you really want as Massive. So I think UQ probably going to need to look to reshuffle this at some point, put the Aurelia into the Ari, try and force out that ultimate, maybe get some less proactive plays coming. But right now, you're just getting kind of punched in the face in your own base.
Oh, look, and leaving this Ari up there with that Baron buff too, it's going to result in a tier 1 tower. It's what you really want to be doing. 1-3-1 style definitely will result in that gold handover, which we're already starting to see as the gold lead has moved over the red side at about a 2k gold lead. So really nice to see, but here comes Talia.
Waves well.
Unstoppable force over the wall, but still gets knocked back. Looks like this could be a dead mountain, but it's really hard to kill one of those as they are pretty chunky, but it's an Irelia with a Bork.
It's early with the ball, cuts down the big mountain eventually, and it's going to be traded for a tier 2 in the mid lane, so a little bit of gold, but this tier 2 is going to be the big prize, which they're going to set their eyes on, so that is going to be traded as well. So you get the Malphite kill for sure, but it is traded back for a lot more gold value, at least in terms of what Massive are getting and map control, which they will be able to reset and potentially look to grab some more wards and create some more space for themselves to work with. But FTR is on the bot side. Is going to trade himself back at tier 1. So it's just a game of trades.
Oh, look, isn't that what League of Legends is, Weapon? Trading things backwards and forwards. I usually trade my mental, but that's okay.
Trade your mental, trade your life. And you walk away feeling not great about it sometimes.
Look, it's not OLO ELO if you're not playing Grey Screen Simulator, you know? So at the same time, we just go in. You got to go have some fun with it. At this tier, of course, it's not about fun. It's about pure humiliation. So we want to see that this red side push a little bit further and really start to take this win a little bit more. But what can we see from blue side? They're obviously playing hard. They're definitely coming back. What's their win con here, Weapon?
it has to be looking at those lane assignments first. You want to try and get the Aurelia into a lane where she can start to do some damage, maybe get a pick off on Lasser on the Ari. Does have Spirit Rush to get a dodge at least once, but if you get that tool out and you get the Zonyas as well, then that's a mage you can kill. And FTR does have the beginnings of 3 items sitting on 2 completed. The 2 core ones from the Aurelia that let you do the murder on people. So he is at a decent state. You've got CM set. You can see a few times they have been able to get rotations and get pickoffs, but so far it's really only been on the Malphite, who's been the only person who's brave enough to overextend. And that will get you gold, but it doesn't quite get you the map control that you need because you're just going to seed it on the other side of the map, like we saw. So I think FTR collapsing onto Lasser has to be the name of the game. But right now it's just going to be catching waves and looking for your next opportunity, which will probably be that dragon in 1 minute time.
Oh, look at that. Is one heavily contested drag. Imagine 3 oceans on this side, the healing coming out of this beautiful Aurelia. And that's a lot of damage.
Yeah, that's a bonk. You press R, you get to half health the Xayah, and that feels pretty damn good. 3 items on the Caitlyn to the 2 items of the Xayah, who has gone for that quick blade spike. Quick word about ADC power spikes, by the way. If you're behind, gentle viewers, quick blades every day, all day, gives you the best 2 item spike you can hope to play for, and you can try and get some more damage out with your abilities with the extra cooldown and the extra little bit of damage you're going to get from the crit. So really nice itemization here by Soy, knowing the game state he's in.
Oh, but Malphite, Kane doesn't get hit, but does decide to go in. Black Shield are just on point tonight, as it looks like that Lord Doms is going to chew through their mouth. Alistair, sorry. But look, they're trying to go for a bit more. There's the big Gnar. He can't get the Gnar off, but there's the
Stunned out
on the back line. So much damage. CTB does look to sort of dodge this one out as Lucozid does pick up this Aurelia. Oh, look at that headshot. Holy dooly. As Lucozid is looking for a pentakill at this point because he is so massive and they are running with their tails in between their legs.
Yeah, they just kite it out so perfectly on Massive that even the Gnar going in gets stunned out and isn't able to find the good angle on the ultimate. And Lucozade is just left untouched, free hitting, burns his flash in the play, but doesn't die considering how much was thrown at him. And Lasser is playing this Ari incredibly well. 1-0 and 7, basically a support. All he's doing is peeling Lucozade. Yeah. And it's working every single time.
Hasn't even died in the process, though. That's what we got to really commend. That is just a phenomenal score to see. You're still fairly keeping up in CS into an Irelia of all champions, but you've got more kill pressure than this Irelia almost at this point. Yes, you can jump on the backline, but what you give to your team as this Ari is so big.
Yeah, it's so sick. Every single fight, you can see he's been landing the key charms on the front line as well, has the Void Staff. So if he's hitting the Gnar, it doesn't necessarily matter. He's just keeping them at bay. And he's even got the Everfrost to lock someone down if they go in. And that's been certainly effective in keeping FTR and HD times honest. Now, they're going to be moving in, taking control of this Baron Arrow, going to be the next objective in their eyes, and taking full control of the jungle as well. So looks like it's going to be not too long before they pull the trigger on this objective. Nice Black Shield.
Black Shield is down though now. That is a trigger in my mind. If I see that down on that from that champion, I'm going for it. Blue still taken, and there's Hex Flash. Glacier dodges. Okay, just taking it slow, you know.
Everyone's chilling. It looks like we're going to get an engage soon. Lasser has popped the ultimate.
But will it be enough? Lasser does hit the charm. This could be the trigger, but no.
We're just playing footsies around the Baron, daring someone to go in, because the moment someone does commit, you've got so much to just go back at them with. You've got the Malphite ultimate, you've got the charm, you've got the Morgana Black Shield, who doesn't have the Zonyas, but does have what's looking like it's going to be a Rylai's, which means that she's just going to be that little bit beefier, a little bit more able to survive.
As you see Kane trying to pressure Everfrost burnt. They're looking to take this. They're shredding this Baron pretty quickly as FTR's in. They've sort of split up the fight, though, as Lacia does have to stop that stopwatch. Ultimates, just absolute bonanza coming down as they're looking to take down WMB. And it looks like CM does pick up the double kill. They're looking to clean this one up, but can Lucozid carry this fight a little bit more as Alistair, which is actually Viego, now goes into this fight, looking for a little bit more. He does pick up the Irelia. Into Irelia. That's what you want to see. The items are too big. CTB wants more. He's bloodthirsty. He's hungry. He gets an unofficial, or what I say, even a quadra kill.
And it's a split fight for Massive as they find two winning fights on two fronts. It looks a bit sketchy at the end, but they do manage to clean it up just with thanks to the heroics of C2B, who's been having a quietly incredible game for himself, actually. But at the start of the fight, Lasser caught out, looked a little bit dicey, but they were able to just fight it out, get multiple resets on the Viego, and he just goes unkilled throughout the entire fight.
Oh man, 8-1-5, and he's backing for what could be a death stance. No, it's actually
GA.
GA.
We love it.
Even better.
Huge. I mean, it's what you want to see. Like, you see how hard it was to kill him in that last fight. He went unkilled, which is like the most obvious statement I think any caster has ever made. But now you have to do it twice. And with the amount that you had to dive onto Lasser, you throw so much at him. It was the FTR going in with the Vanguard's Edge that and locking him down with the stun. It took so long to get that kill with the mobility from the Ahri. And now you've got the Viego to worry about. You've got this Caitlyn hitting from half a screen away with a Bloodthirster, so she's going to be healing up. And it's just really stacking up against you here. And FTR might be caught.
And wants to go in for it, does land those little daggers, but is it going to be enough? As look at the damage, look at what happened. But there's the GA.
There's the GA.
King 1, 2, 3 doesn't secure the kill. Has to burn the flash. CTB does get out of dodge, but look, there's the black shield keeping him alive, but no GA to stand. But there's the shutdown going over to Zaya, doing a really good job as it is.
There's no Caitlyn.
4v1. Caitlyn's nowhere to be seen. Ahri's nowhere to be seen, but there's a Featherstorm weirdly coming out. A little bit of a waste in my opinion, trying to stay alive there. But look, CM Stet. That's too hard to say for me, man.
CM Stat? Yeah, we'll go with that.
CM Stat. All right. Well, you nailed it.
So start a fight without your carry, and you invariably lose it, is what we found out. But, oh my god, Lucas 8.
What is this damage?
Yep.
That's their tank.
So teleport's coming in.
Oh, but is it going to be enough, though? The double TP, is it looking like for a little bit more? Here's Clear with the Weaver's Wall, looking for a big engage. Kane does a beautiful job knocking up 2. Lucas 8 just does so much damage, flashes forward to pick it up, picks up a double kill. That's the ace in the hole. It's not enough for the triple, but they could be
has a dash.
little bit more. Does have one charm, goes down, one hit, does a triple kill coming in, and that is an 11-0 Caitlyn.
And at the end of the day, it's Lucas 8 who cleans up the fight alongside Lasser, just setting up his AD carry to knock it home 11-0-6. Lucas 8 is online and he's hitting like a truck, basically soloing HD Times, his former teammate, at the start of that fight. And now they're looking to push this bot lane tower down. They're going to be putting pressure down in the mid as well with the TP coming down from NWB. Looks like they might be going for the throat.
I think they're just going for the end of the game, which is exactly what you want to see at this point. 3 members still down at this point, and it's a lot of blood coming in. Caitlyn chunking down these towers. Can they take any more as the engage comes in? Alistair, but an unstoppable force as well. They're tanking that tower too. They take 1, but can they go for a little bit more as the Featherstorm does go down 2? MWB does get taken out as well. HD Times picking that one up as he's now dashing forward, but they've ended the game already, Weapon, and it's a 1 first game heading over.
Really nicely done. Bit of a scuffle back and forth at times, but it felt like largely Massive were in control of that game once they got their composition online and once we got to the team fight phase. So easy to execute, like we set up in draft with the Malphite going forward. When everyone hits their stuff, and Lucas Aid kind of smurfed it with the way he used his flash in every single fight to draw out the overcommit from the enemy team, was just throwing out damage.
This man looked so unstoppable. There was no way they could get on top of him. 38,000 damage that game. Just absolutely massive. The next closest was 30. So he was chunking them out so much in these fights. But you've got to give credit over to CTB as well, Lacia as well. They were just keeping him alive in these fights. So amazing words. Resurgence as well. Honestly, like MVP support right there. Just those black shields, those binds, all on point. Weapon, any final things you want to say before we hand this over to the desk?
Yeah, it just looked coordinated and clean from Massive when it all came together in the fights, and it looked a bit scrappy from UQ. It was all about FTR, and it's all about the Talia, whose name I've forgotten is CM Stet, who quietly did have a good game, decent amount of damage thrown down, but when you're throwing that damage at frontline, at Malphite, it's just not quite as effective when you need to dive and kill that backline and get rid of Lucasade, who's just doing so much work when he's enabled by his team.
Yeah, no, look, and it was still an absolute one. Guys, we do have another game coming to you after this 3-game series tonight. So fingers crossed we might get to 3 games, but at this point, we're probably looking at a 2-0 sweep. But guys, we're going to head it over to the desk. Enjoy, guys. Break it down for us.
Thank you, Pike. And casual. Sheesh. Were you wearing this earlier? I did not see this outfit before.
Well, that's probably because you were outside, mate, with no lights on. You couldn't see anything. We couldn't see you. You were stuck in Mordecai's world. But glad to see you inside. We can see your beautiful hair, beautiful face. Good to see you. What a game. Talk about beautiful. Let's talk about a beautiful performance coming out from, in particular, the team, of course, but in particular, Lucasade. Lucas. I mean, wasn't he just the main storyline, main character, protagonist, all of it throughout that entire game, and even beginning to end, was he clearly such the focal point of what Massive drafted for? We even saw it through the pick ban phase, allowing them to counter in the bot lane, get that really guaranteed favorable matchup in the Caitlyn Morgana. But sometimes, Quick, it's not enough to just pick the right champ. You've got to absolutely perform on it, and that's what he did. I've never seen Lucas look so clean as in that game, and I'm so happy for him as well, knowing that this is Massive's first win in such a long time. How great that he gets to stand so much higher than the rest of the AD carries in this tournament with such a standout 1v9 carry.
But Casual, look, seeing a Caitlyn locked in, it's something I permaban every game I get to play, but it's not one of the champions that's been permanently locked in the tournaments we're watching in playoffs and MSI. I don't think we see a Caitlyn that often. It's Jinx, Aphelios. We're looking those champions getting locked in again and again and again and again. What place does Caitlyn have in a draft, and why did it work so well here?
Well, Caitlyn has a place in the draft when you, exactly like you said, you actually draft for it. So you play for it. You guarantee it a safe front line so it's allowed to just free hit in the back, stack up its lethal tempo, but give yourself a guaranteed matchup in the bot lane so you can do what Caitlyn does best. It's not so much team fighting, even though we saw Lucas pop off in the team fights. What you pick Caitlyn for is instant and permanent priority in the bot lane. And we saw that. I mean, Lucas going up 30, 40 CS at sort of mid-early game points in this game one of this best of three matchup. And we saw that even CM Stet actually attempted to be near the bot lane as much as he possibly could. Talia, yes, is that full clearing jungle, but to be fair to Lucas, he maintained a CS lead with a lot of pressure coming out from UQ Eagles as well, trying to shut him down, and he just refused to. The reason why Caitlyn works so well, and our beautiful casters mentioned this as well, is the ability to lay a CC too. As long as one bit of that CC hits, everything else can be guaranteed. And the main thing you want to look for is positioning these Caitlyn traps around these objectives. It's why, even though there was so much bot lane pressure coming out from UQ Eagles jungler, Charlie was able to secure those first two Drakes as well, which allowed them to scale into the game. And then we saw come around that 35-minute sort of Baron fight, or maybe a bit less, it was just a clean sweep, right? The only thing that was really stopping this game ending earlier, I feel like the win was inevitable for Massive, looking at the first 5 to 10 minutes. But what stalled them out really was CM Stet on this Talia. I mean, credit has to go to him that not only did he pressure a lot of the bot lane in the early stages of the game, but these team fights as well. He performed on this pick really well. And he's actually not the jungler Quicksand that we talked about earlier that actually subbed him in too. So to have a really standout performance as a sub is equally as impressive, but wasn't enough to trifle with the likes of CTB and Lucas, who put the rest of Massive into their backpacks and took them on a wonderful journey to get 1-0 up in this series.
And look, I still can't believe this, but this is something you were telling me backstage, Casual, is that this is the first high elo win that Massive has found in the last year, I think.
It could be a year.
It's been a while. It's been a really long time.
No, it has. It's fun to say that. That's why I said that. I mean, I'm very much guilty of saying things just because they're fun. Whether that's fully accurate, I'm not too sure. My point being, of course, Quicksand, it has been an incredibly long time. Massive's last showing, MT1, their main roster, came out in the Avalanche Glacial Cup where they left completely winless. And it was a weird contrast as well for this team that have a lot of the same players, particularly Lucas and Lasea as well, which is why we mention it too. It's not really a wholly new roster. You've still got some of those veterans from what was a really difficult competitive stage for them. So I'm really happy they're able to secure themselves this first win. What I think is important for Massive now going into this second game is to not let it get to their heads right now, because they've still got to close out this series, Quicksand. And UQ Eagles really fought for for that win as well. They didn't kind of just roll over. We've seen a lot of quick and clean 2-0 sweeps in this tournament so far from what we heard backstage. It's not going to be the case here on stream. UQ Eagles are absolutely up for the fight, so Massive need to retain the momentum that they've gained now and close out this series, because while, yes, they look closer to guaranteeing themselves the first series win in almost a year, they're just not there yet. However, with the way that they're playing right now, they look incredibly hard to stop.
And I think the last thing I kind of want to dilly-dally on is, well, first I'd like to readjust or re-explain what the format is, because I don't think we got a chance to do that earlier.
Yeah.
So if you're wondering what's happening with these games and why we mentioned that we might see Mcom 35 Army be take away first place and they're the clear favorites, everyone's fighting for second place. My head hurts. What's going on? Okay. I need you to open your listening ears and sit down and listen up. So we have 4 groups that have 5 teams in each of them. That's group A, B, C, and D. And we'll be playing over the course of 5 weeks to determine top 2 teams from each group. And then at the end of those 5 weeks, the top 2 teams will proceed into a playoffs, which is a quarterfinals with 8 teams in total, and then playing in a straightforward elimination bracket to decide the winner of our tournament. And we just mentioned here, Massive taking away this first win, and which they might lead into winning the series, means so much to them, because in a group where you have 3 LCO players on a single team, second place feels like all you can aim for. I'm not saying they can't take first place, but to most teams, you have to respect the prestige coming from these people. So aiming for second place, that's 4 teams that are battling for 1 position. Makes the whole thing a little bit harder.
Yeah, exactly right. And what happens sometimes is when you have that standout team, it makes the lower part of a potential group that much more exciting, because the pressure's on then, right, to really, really have to compete. You know, if it was the majority of the group facing such insane quality players, then it doesn't really matter that much. You'll be like, oh, we're going to lose anyway. But not the case. Massive absolutely have as much of an opportunity as any one of these teams, including UQ Eagles, who are very much on the cards to come back into this series, to make a real point coming out of Group D, which a lot of people are dubbing, as Pike mentioned, the potential group of death. So all the more exciting. I like that both of these teams were really able to go blow for blow. One more thing I want to talk about before you lead us off for an intermission, Quicksand, is the rest of UQ Eagles and what they drafted for. Because we mentioned that Massive Esports really drafted something quite simple, as Pike mentioned, maybe not mechanically intensive. However, Lucas clearly had something to argue with Pike on there, as he showed some insane mechanics on that Caitlyn. It was much more simpler, which I really like that point from our casters, because on the opposite end, it was a lot trickier. They had opposite win cons in terms of the ability to strong side top, whereas Massive knew they wanted to full clear down, with Coach Charlie trying to prioritize more of the bot side early game. The Talia is a jungler who wants a lot more resources in terms of camps than, say, the Viego does, because he's more reliant on that reset. Then he is completing his build quite early and guaranteeing himself those prior items. And then FTR is the final thing I want to mention for UQ Eagles, because we knew he was going to pick some sort of a carry champ to really put his foot down onto Lasea. And yeah, he looked like he was getting some favorable trades here and there, and it was looking like he was putting, you know, his foot on the throat of Lasea just a little bit. Nothing really came from it. So it seemed like UQ Eagles kind of got stuck in this idea that the only way to win this game against Massive was kills. And yes, they found some, I think even going 4-0 up at one particular point in the early game, but we saw that Massive knew their win con a lot more simpler, and they were able to play that throughout the map and guarantee themselves resources through giving Caitlyn as much farm as possible, stacking those early 2 Drakes. So I'd like to see UQ Eagles maybe scale it just a little bit more back in terms of what they actually want to pick, make it simpler for themselves, because right now Massive are clearly so comfortable on their comfort picks that you've got to actually now sort of reel it back, because it's not the ability to outplay that's going to win these games. It's the ability to outthink your opponents, and everything's on the cards for this game too, Quicksand. So all the more to play for, and it was such a close game right up until that Caitlyn went crazy that anything really can happen in this series, and it's just incredible to start the night off with this matchup.
Oh my god, dude! After hearing you say that, I'm hyped. You know,
Get
the
hyped.
ability
Come on,
to
let's go.
outplay, it's the
Yeah.
ability to outthink. Oh my god, I'm excited. I hope you're excited.
Get
So
ready.
let's jump to a quick break, and then it's going to be me and Casual leading you into the draft, which will send it off to the casters after then. So for now,
Beautiful.
we'll see you guys on the other side of this break.
See you then.